All right, let's see how this goes, Dixon. It might not show up all that well, but... So the first thing I did, well actually not the first thing I did, I'll just sort of wander around, but I've taken out the rear seats. Interesting, you can see here see how this section was not getting any sunlight, whereas you compare this bit, and then even more so the headrests. See how bleached they are? So when I sort of cleaned it all up, it darkened, but that was obviously just because it was wet. So, it's not the end of the world. It's not ideal, but yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't mind getting a different back, but at the same time, I can't really be, you can't actually see it. So I think the fact that they're clean for now is good. These seats here, the rear seats they're not so bleached. It's really just the headrests, but anyway, I've really cleaned these up, and there was a bit of gunk in the back there. What I'm going to do is make sure that I wonder if you can see it, but there's well, you can't see it. See that tab there? These they weren't really sitting down properly, so when I reinstall everything, then I'll make sure that that's all sitting down properly, so the rear seats will be a bit nicer. I've gone through and I've sort of had to piece together two cards. So here's another door card that I picked up, and this one had some issues with it. The trouble was I wanted just one that I could plug and play, but you can see, I don't know if it'll pick it up, but it's not really that. Hang on, maybe over here. It doesn't really pick it up, but in that light, but in here you can kind of see that little bit there. The foam backing kind of comes out, so you can see it there. So it was a question of, okay, well, do I take one that has foam backing that you can see? Just didn't look that clean. Plus it didn't have the see this Kenwood thing here, so that's sort of stuck on, and the tweeter's already in here. So the question was, how much better is that one over there to the existing one, based on these things already being on? And the thing, so it's either a question of seeing foam through here, which I honestly think looked worse than this blemish here. You can see that how it's that's just a rip where it's pulled it right back. Hasn't gone all the way through, but anyway. So I went through and I took the there's a backing here, which I went and did. So the original one was broken, so I took that off, that one, and then put that in here. It had snapped from sort of here down, which meant that when you were sitting in the driver's seat, you could see through to that. So I took that out and just re-glued all this down. The other thing was, you might remember the window used to always make this sort of noise every time you opened it, and it turned out that this bracket here was super bent. You can sort of see I've bent it back as best I can, but it was like mega bent. So somehow this had just got absolutely crunched at some point, including this piece here. So I took this piece from the other one and put that on and bent this all back into place. So the idea is that now, whoop, shit. Sorry, Dixon. The idea is that now this is all straight, where previously it was actually a little bit bent. So I'm wondering if that was one of the problems. But anyway, it's not perfect. You can sort of see how it makes that noise. That's in part because of the fact that it doesn't seat perfectly with this bracket. So I did toy with the idea of taking the whole bracket off, but the trouble is that if you look here, it's well and truly stuck. you know, getting that off would be really tricky. You know, you can sort of see it in there. You know, that's all stuck in. This is stuck on the top there. It forms a you know, a structural piece of the whole thing. I wouldn't be confident in sticking it back on properly. So that's why you can see here, that's what it's meant to be. The other thing is, see how there's sort of like this buffer stuff here? That's like a foam. That's not on the current one. So I'm contemplating sticking down some cardboard on there and seeing if that quietens things down perhaps. But I mean, in any event, it's significantly better than it was, which is good. All this stuff here that you can see, all this stuff was here because I was using that as a sort of to rest on top of this whilst the glue was setting. So that's why all that crap's sitting around. But you can see these are all the rear. They're all in the boot. So a lot of them are sort of broken and in pieces and are missing a lot of clips. And you can see here there's sort of, you know, stuff's broken there and you've got cracks and stuff. So it's all totally stuffed, but the trouble is that they're all stuffed in the Skylines. This is all mega flimsy stuff. So it's a question of, do I try and find other ones that are in better nick, which don't have all these cracks and stuff, you know, like there, and you know, it's across all of them. And the reality is, you're probably not going to find one that's better. Like, it's sort of like when I bought this thing here. You buy a replacement part, but it's got all the same sort of faults as your current ones. That's the backing plate that I replaced. So I think I might, I don't know. I think I might see if I can sort of create my own backing of, you know, with like maybe some cardboard or something like that. I reckon I can kind of clean them up and make them slightly better. What took a really long time was cleaning all these guys. So they're all a lot whiter and stuff now. I just used washing detergent, like you know, that you chuck in the when you're washing your clothes, and sort of just, I used like a relatively hard brush on them and clean them up as best I could. They one of them, the passenger seat had an oil stain on it, annoyingly, and you can still sort of see it here on the left hand side. That's just a little bit darker, but it's better than it was, and I think that's realistically the best outcome I'll get. I was toying with the idea of getting different ones, you know, going off and buying new ones, but these ones they're, you know, a new set will cost $300 or $400 or something like that to get Nismo ones, and these are you know, proper Tokyo Japanese ones, which is kind of cool. You can see here, this is where it really had worn down, and that grain is all down and quite thin. But I mean, they've come up nice. I mean, I might replace them one day, but that's the same pattern that you get on the Nismo ones. So they're essentially a replica of Nismo from Japan. So I'm relatively happy to run with them for now. This is the most recent find. So that's the obviously the driver's side controls, and the annoying thing here is, see that? That's where that's where a little bolt or a little screw goes into the door, and then secures this whole thing down, and that explains why this always made a rattle and moved around every time you did something with it. So this piece here, not with those buttons, but just the plastic piece, and then inclusive of that handle there, is you can buy replacement ones. They're $130. So I'm considering doing it, but at the same time, this one's in pretty good nick. It needs like a really serious clean. but the only problem is this thing there. So I'll need to think of some sort of way that I can potentially create that bracket again to screw it down, because it's really frustrating when you get in and out of the car and this thing moves around. You want to secure that down. That's one of the annoying things that I've always wanted to fix in the car. And so it turns out that I can do it by buying a piece, which is normally how I go about fixing these things, but we'll see. Oh yeah, so the back of the car. This is something that I've gone through and changed. You can see this is the old one that I had in here was really yellowed along here. So I bought this off the same guy I bought the engine off. And the only trouble is it has got this nick in there, but it's either sort of have a yellowed light or have one with that imperfection. I'm sort of inclined to go with this. It's not perfect, but the reason I did it was because it was there, it was cheap. I'll show you the other one in a tick, but I'll show you these are the seats. This is probably where I've spent the most time, is this headrest on the here was super mucky and yellowy. Like, you couldn't actually see it in the car because it's always sort of dark on the inside. There's still some blemishes and stuff on these, but you couldn't actually tell how dirty this thing was. The only real giveaway was the fact that when you looked at this Alcantara here, it had all gone mega shiny, and you can still see, I don't know what they call it, there's a particular term, but where it sort of clumps up, and then when you run your hand across it, it doesn't fully come up in the same way that this does. So it's not perfect along the back here by any stretch, but it's definitely better than it was. This part's actually come up really nice. It's this that could probably do with some more work, but for the time being, I spent so long in it, I think I'm happy with it where it is. This one also, this is the passenger here. That also just came up really nice. So I spoke to when I bought the engine, the guy was telling me that these are worth quite a bit now, the Series 3, because they're quite rare. So I bought these for $1,000, and now if you got a Series 2 or the regular R32 GDR seats, they're worth about $2,000, and these are worth about $3,000. So definitely worth the investment in terms of spending the time and putting them back to a better condition. They're not perfect at all. See how there's sort of, the camera picks it up okay actually, but there's almost like a line here of different color, and so who knows what caused that. Kind of looks like sun, but anyway, so they're not perfect. I don't think these are worth $3,000 personally, but anyway, I'll show you the back of the car first before we go inside. So there we are. So everything's been pulled out from in here. You can see that's the cover from the replacement one that I got. I won't touch anything because I got bolts sitting everywhere. But there's all this sort of surface rust in here that needs to be dealt with. So I've gone and bought some wire brushes, and I've got a proper spray paint to chuck over the top of that, which also stops all the rust and holds it all in. But that's going to be a project in itself, repainting all this. So I'm looking forward to that. And then once I've done that, that's when I'll go ahead and go through all the interior or the boot trim pieces and fix them up. The other thing I noticed was, how this was sort of this rear light wasn't always working. I found this sort of, so this is some sort of a module perhaps, and I don't know if it'll pick it up here, but you can see a really dodgy job that they've done there on the wiring. So I've gone and bought a multimeter and some wiring stuff and a soldering iron, and you've got all that, haven't you? So I'm going to give that a crack. Hopefully there's enough space there for me to actually strip it and then resolder it, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, that'll be interesting. And the other reason I bought this was because I'm going to reseal this. So the reason that all this rust has even happened in the first place was because this light was leaking. So I tried sealing it from the inside previously, but I've watched some videos since, and I've bought a proper sealant, and you sort of need to follow it all around when you reinstall this. So I think that's another thing that I'll have to take a look at. So to the inside, so I pulled all that out and am essentially trying to work out how I can secure this window best. At the moment it's still pretty good. I thought that it might be missing a couple of, these things here and some stoppers. That might have been causing it to rattle and whatnot, but now that I've sort of found that metal bracket was bent, I'm thinking that might have actually been the cause. But anyway, I've also got this all sort of the interior started when I looked at this guy, and I wanted to put him in there, and then I thought, oh geez, stuff's actually looking a bit dirty in there, maybe I'll start pulling it out, and I ended up pulling it all out. The camera doesn't really, oh hang on, I might have a light somewhere. Do I have a light? No, that's all right. Anyway, I thought I had a light in there, but yeah, that carpet's all been completely vacuumed and cleaned up, and pulled all that jazz out. But it's very satisfying getting rid of all the dust and grime in there. I'll see if the other side picks it up any better. Let's see. Yeah, sort of. So it's all a work in progress, but yeah, completely degriming it. I've got all the crap in there still, so I've got another sort of half day to spend in here cleaning it all out and then doing another final wipe. But this entire side's been done, which has been pretty satisfying. That door card's all, this completely done this. I took these off and gave them a really serious clean too. They'd sort of yellowed in a lot of places. They're still more yellowy than this, unfortunately, but I think that's just the nature of these things sucking up smoke and other sort of grime and stuff like that, more so than this. So I think I just sort of need to live with that. I really cleaned it as best I could. I'm not going to get much better than that, but that's the main thing. Yeah, so that all came up pretty nice. I mean, as good as it will come up, really. Yeah, so they've all got imperfections. You can see that sort of bump there. So as soon as that sort of stuff is irritating, but it really is a matter of, well, that's just the nature of these materials, how they get dented and bumped over time, and you go ahead and you'd buy a new one, and then it'd be this imperfection wouldn't be there, but then you'd probably have a rip here, or it's sort of, you're constantly chasing your tail with these. I think you just got to kind of keep it in the best nick that you can. But yeah, that's sort of where this is all at. Oh, there's the light there. I'll give you a quick look. Yeah, so it's funny, I actually ended up, I cleaned it all, and then I went through and that's when I started taking everything off, and then so I'll have to do a whole new vacuum, but that's okay. Anyway, it should all come up pretty nice when it's done. All right, that's a pretty long video. I might just end it there. Let me know if you get any projects happening, Dixon.